Welcome to the Board of Finance meeting. It's Monday, March 16th. Do we have everyone in place at our table? We don't need to seat anyone. We're all set. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from the February 17th, our last Board of Finance meeting?
Yep.
Any comments, questions? Second, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Correspondence, item 3. I don't have any. Anybody have? Item 4, visitor and public comments. A big audience tonight. Does anyone care to speak?
Excuse me, do my emails not count as correspondence?
That's an interesting question. We officially cannot have correspondence as a group and not have it be a meeting. So I didn't respond to any of your correspondence because it's officially would be called a meeting.
But this shouldn't be brought up here that you've received.
Well, I
correspondence?
assumed you were going to be presenting all of your facts. I mean,
You
from
said
what
you
I
were
saw,
Said you were gonna present, so.
there was
I should be
about
available to
30
answer questions.
there was about 30 pages
Right.
of correspondence that I'm happy to have you present it now.
Does everybody have a copy? Do you want a copy?
I have it on my
I
computer.
have it in my email.
I have extra copies for anybody that wants a copy.
Well, I have an extra copy.
You have them printed, I might as well take them.
I had trouble with some of the tables over there.
You have to do some print out.
Yeah.
And this is the brief history. Who got it on?
She printed it and that's what he.
I have them all in different emails.
You want a hard copy?
Great.
I'll just do it in my email.
I'm ready. I have it. It helps to have it from.
You know, for the sake of time, you've already had a chance to receive this, so I'm going to save everybody the time of actually going through it. But basically, what it says is that the time has come for Clinton to have a year in which we don't have a mill rate increase. That may seem impossible, but I've suggested a number of ways to get there. There's no single gap. A big part of it is the education budget, which has shown big surpluses this year. The Board of Education decided to spend that down, which I think was a mistake and poor judgment. But there are also the opportunities to enhance revenues, to use the $1 million revenue surplus that you had from 13-14 to increase the allocated surplus, and also some opportunities to enhance revenue based upon recent history. All those together could offset any increases. You can increase the tax levy by $100,000, and not, because that's about the amount, you went up 0.25% in your grand list, so that would allow you to spend about $100,000 more. Right now, you're looking at $1.3 million more.
I thought our business was just up 0.33%.
0.25 is what I,
Pretty, oh, I thought you said point of what, oh.
0.25%.
Yes, it's reasonably flat.
Which would be about $100,000 if nobody appeals, There's some appeals that might go down a little bit. But anyway, all that said, I've given you the information. I'm here to answer any questions you might have, or any suggestions that you might have.
I have my own,
Okay.
I think we all probably have our own comments on the budget, and
All right, thank you very much.
appreciate your input. Thank you. Does anybody else care to speak? Yes.
I prepared a letter. Thank you. If you don't mind. Thank you, Mr. Farmer. So in response to the memo, which I had seen from Mr. Carr, I drafted a response to some of the things that have been said about the budget. With regard to the budget. So, dear Ms. Nettle and members of the Board of Finance, as you know, each year the Board of Education spends many hours working to develop a fiscally responsible, educationally sound budget. This task can be arduous, and the Board recognizes its significance. Over the past few years, the Board has faced the additional burden of having to address various claims about the justification for its expenditures. We've been accused of allowing fat to accumulate in the budget, we've been accused of gouging taxpayers, and most recently we've been accused of hiding surplus funds. These accusations are not only patently false, they're also offensive and malicious. Each year, the members of the Board of Education, elected members of the Clinton community, volunteer our time and spend hours getting the information we need to make responsible choices regarding the education budget. We listen to presentations from each of the cost centers that make up the Clinton Public Schools. We gather information about current enrollment, future enrollment, identified student needs, capital requests, and much more. We ask questions of the administrators making the presentations, and then we ask the assistant superintendent and the superintendent more questions. We take our duties seriously, recognizing that we've been entrusted by the community to ensure that Clinton's children are being provided with the best possible education while simultaneously not overburdening Clinton's taxpayers. The concern for the implications of our decisions upon Clinton's taxpayers is at the forefront of our minds at all times. As evidence of this regard for Clinton's taxpayers, Mr. Cross has shared with both the Boards of Selectmen and Finance the various cost containment measures the Board has implemented. He's also repeatedly shared the cost-saving measures that have been realized in the budget over the past several years because of these measures. To reflect these savings, those line items have been reduced accordingly. The surpluses realized over the years of Mr. Cross's tenure as our superintendent of schools have been roughly 1 to 3% of the budget and resulted from notoriously unpredictable budgetary items, including health insurance utilization and personnel changes. According to the various business manager candidates interviewed during our recent hiring process, these nominal surpluses are evidence of careful and responsible budgeting. Yet somehow, here in Clinton, that responsible budgeting is twisted by a few members of our community into something that is not to be tolerated. The alternative to a budget surplus is a budget deficit. Would the Board of Finance really prefer that the Board of Education budget irresponsibly and request the town provide additional funds at a later date to keep our schools running? I think not. This year, after individuals speaking at a town meeting in the spring of 2013 suggested that the surplus be spent down, the Board decided to use a portion of those surplus funds to offset future capital expenditures. These conversations were held at public Board of Education meetings and recorded in the minutes, which are made available to the public. The BOE then discussed the selected expenditures openly at public BOE meetings and documented them accordingly. They were also presented to various town committees, including the CEC and the Board of Finance. To claim that the Board was trying to hide these expenditures or the surplus funds is not only defamatory, it's ludicrous. In his memorandum, which you just received another copy of, Mr. Carr argues that it is in everyone's best interest to scale the education operating budget to the real educational needs of Clinton students, which is considerably less than the MBR. While I do not know the extent of Mr. Carr's expertise in education, I can tell you based upon my 14 years of experience as an educator that Mr. Carr is entirely wrong. Scaling back the education budget to the level Mr. Carr proposes year after year is not in our community's best interest, not in the taxpayers' best interest, and most importantly, not in our students' best interests. Frankly, given the fact that Mr. Carr rarely attends Board of Education meetings other than those pertaining to the budget, and to my knowledge has never spent any measurable time in a single classroom in the Clinton Public Schools, I wonder how he is better able to identify the real educational needs of Clinton students than the administrators with multiple degrees in education who are in our schools and with our students every single day. While I genuinely appreciate the valuable input of community members into the decision-making process, there is a distinct difference between holding the Board accountable by requiring it to explain its decisions and falsely claiming that the Board is derelict in its duties toward Clinton's children and taxpayers. A true dereliction of our duty would be funding our schools at the minimum level allowed under state law, with no regard for what our students actually need, thereby putting our schools, and much more importantly, our students, at risk of failure. The unfortunate reality is that meeting our students' needs in an increasingly demanding world is expensive. Rutgers University professor Robert Baker, in a report entitled Revisiting the Age-Old Question, Does Money Matter in Education?, reviews the body of research on spending and educational quality and concludes that despite recent rhetoric, on average, aggregate measures of per-pupil spending are positively associated with improved or higher student outcomes, while schooling resources which cost money, including class size reduction, are positively associated with student outcomes. As a community with an eye toward the future, we must appropriately fund our schools to meet our students' needs as determined by the experts we have hired to evaluate and determine those needs. As a board, we do our best to contain the high cost associated with educating future generations, but we cannot fail our students in the interest of meeting an arbitrary number deemed acceptable by someone with no firsthand knowledge of or expertise in educating Clinton's children. Under Mr. Cross's stewardship, Clinton schools are moving in the right direction. Our test scores are improving each year. Our high school was recently recognized by the College Board for its work in increasing student participation in advanced placement courses. Our athletic programs are winning championships. Our kids are thriving and learning and becoming better citizens of the world. Please respect the work that is happening. Please respect the work of your fellow volunteers, taxpayers, and community members who serve on the Board of Education. Please respect the voters who elected us to represent the children of this community. Please support the education budget as it is presented to you.
Are there any other?
I just have a question. Will we be able to comment on our budget when we get to it, or do you just want us to?
Well, in the spirit of moving things along, it might, well, I don't know. What does the committee think? It's okay to comment later on? Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I actually kind of think that getting it all out on the table now, because we're not really gonna go line by line later on. We already went line by line.
Gonna go department by department, though.
Oh, we are?
Well, yeah.
Didn't we already do that?
Department by department, I mean, just in total.
Put in the final number.
Put in the final number.
Okay.
We didn't change any numbers when you guys discussed
Okay.
it.
All right, that's fine.
So, you can, Todd, you can speak as we get to your
Thank you
department.
very much.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, my name is Kristen Sandler, and I'm just here to express my support for the prevention coordinator position. I was a former employee and a longtime community member of the Partners in Community Coalition, which has existed since 1990 and has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars over the past 10 years, federally funded by the Drug Free Communities Program and supported by state and local funding. And I just think it would be a complete detriment for our community and a reversal of all the hard work of the coalition to not continue to support the efforts of Kelly Edwards and all of our volunteers. So I just wanted to put in a plug for the coalition.
I have to say, I personally had a very nice meeting with Kelly for an hour discussing all of her concerns. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kiana Peralta. I am here as a Shoreline community member. I'm also here to show my support for Partners in Community here in Clinton. The prevention program that Kelly Edwards runs here in Clinton is one that many of our shoreline towns are envious of. I personally am from Old Saybrook. I have benefited directly from Kelly's programs, so have all of my children who I brought here tonight to also support her in her program. I've had many conversations with administration in the Old Saybrook School District who are looking to Kelly and her program for inspiration and to mirror a program in our own school system that is much like hers. So, just to keep it short, I wanted to just come out and say I think what Kelly is doing is amazing. I think that the program that Clinton Public Schools provides for not only its students, but also the parents and the community, the services that she, provides are really amazing, and it's definitely something that the rest of your shoreline towns are looking at. and they're looking to her for guidance and to put their own programs together. So I just wanted to remind you how lucky you are to have had her and these programs, and that I hope you continue to support her, her position, and the role PIC plays with your community. Thank you.
My name is Erica Gelvin, and I wear many hats in town, so I kind of want to summarize and say that I respectfully request that you give your full consideration to the budgets that they've been put forward today, particularly as they pertain to the children of our town, whether they be the education, whether they be PIC, whether they be the fire department, whether they be youth and family services in general. This is crucial. So I really ask you to give your full attention. I know you do anyway, but give your full attention, heart, and mind to making sure that our children in our town are supported. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name is Dave DePease. I've been a member of the town for about 45 years and a taxpayer and a self-employed businessman for a while. I had been on the employee of the Clinton Public Schools for the last 6 or 7 years and a member of the maintenance department. And about 3 weeks ago I was fired for allegedly taking part in some kind of action that revealed an expense that I think maybe embarrassed some people on the Board of Education. For many years, I didn't really give a rat's interest in the budget of the town. I just lived here and worked here. In the last 6 or 7 years, being on the maintenance department of the Clinton Public Schools, I did see a lot of things that just as a regular person, I would wonder about. Expenses that were paid, expenses that were, accrued, and work that was hired that could have been done different ways. And I never really kind of thought about it until this thing turned up. And I was fired 3 weeks ago for taking part in something or being alleged taking part in something that, like I said, embarrassed some people on the Board of Ed. It opened my eyes. And I like what Kim Buckley said, I understand how she feels about, we want to trust the people that we hand our money to as a taxpayer, that they're going to spend it wisely. But I can honestly say that I've seen in the past 6 or 7 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars that could have probably been spent in other ways that wouldn't have been spent as $100,000 or $200,000. And I just want you people in this room and on the board to know that it's not all what you think. I can give you example after example, and I don't know if this is the place to do it, but if you'd like me to, I will. But if you want to talk to me afterwards, I'd love to, answer some questions. But I think you need to know that sometimes the people we hire to do the jobs that, we trust aren't doing it the way they should. And sometimes the easiest road is to take the easiest path. That might not be the best path. It's just the path of least resistance. And I know as a self-employed person, when I needed to get from point A to point B, I did just 2 steps, point A to point B, and I got the job done as quick as I could for as cheap as I could to make the most money that I could. I see sometimes in the municipal world that people go from step A to -4 steps backwards, to 2 steps forwards, to 3 more steps backwards, spending 3 times the amount of money, and it's not their money. It's our money. I'm a taxpayer. And I was told once that, I answer to certain people, but since I'm no longer employed by the Clinton Public Schools, those people now answer to me as a taxpayer. And if all the things I see and I think I know, I should tell. And I should not just accept what you say and what you do because you tell me to. And like I say, I have countless examples. I don't know when is the proper time to say them. If now is then, I would. If it's not now, then at a later date. But when I see a budget of $1 million in a maintenance department, or $700,000 or $800,000, and I think I could spend $300,000 or $400,000 less just by doing things differently, that's a lot of money that we are spending. If I was gonna buy a house and it's worth $500,000, and I spend $800,000 to buy that same house, you would look at me and say, that was dumb. But when we do it in a budget, it's not so bad. And when you can hide a bunch of bills under a couple other titles, you and I don't get to look and see what makes up those big numbers of $300,000 or $400,000. But accrued in there is a bunch of numbers that could have been saved in different ways. I know a number like $70,000 could buy 2 teachers' salaries, brand new teachers. It could buy a number of vehicles for the town. It could pay a lot of things. But instead, it could be used for simple stuff, like maybe moving snow or something like that. We're pushing around water, and we don't mind spending a lot of money to push around frozen water, but we can push around people for free. And that's my point, is I just want you guys to understand that having been involved in seeing certain things, I don't know where my outlet is. Is this the place for it or not? But anybody here who's interested, I'm willing to talk if anybody wants to listen. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Since you brought it up, it is on my agenda to discuss. The Board of Education averages between $1,500 and $3,800 per plow event, $95 an hour per truck. This year, for some reason, they called out a secondary, they have a primary contractor that does their plowing. This year, they called out a secondary contractor on 2 snow events. The bill for one was $22,200. The bill for the second event was $35,674. And this is with a, I was overwhelmed with that kind of lack of proper maintenance. And I also see that in their budget this year, they have a 5% increase for the head of maintenance.
Yeah, I
So
might add,
I am aware.
I might add, if I could, that they also have 2 brand new town trucks with plows that could do all the plowing with the staff that they had a while back. But they also hired contractors at $30,000+ a year to remove snow. So you have 2 trucks that could do it with people that could have done it, and you hired an outside service to do it, and you paid for an outside service on top of that to move more snow. On top of that, you hired people to clean off the roof. So, you know, when you add it all up,
Yeah.
that's a lot of money.
All right. Does anyone else have anything to say? Yes.
Mary Jo Phelps. I just wanted to echo Eric Gelvin's statement to ask you to put the budgets forward to the voters and let the voters decide and keep the budget intact so we can decide.
Well, our responsibility is beyond that, but thank you.
That's what I'm asking.
On that, may I make a comment? I'd like to, I appreciate everyone's comments here tonight, but I think you have to understand what we're here to do tonight is really finalize a budget for you to finally see and make your comments at the public hearing. Everything you said here is important to each of you, and I want to make sure that you repeat these at our public hearing. When we say finalizing a budget, we're not finalizing anything. We're finalizing something to give to you people for approval. That's when you can make your comments, and I hope you make more. And I like the way that we're well attended tonight, and I only hope that we can continue to have this kind of attendance going forward. It means that you're participating in a positive way, and it helps us make our decisions.
Moving on, item 5, $19,000 appropriation request for public works equipment repairs and maintenance. Pete?
What has happened, as you all know, we had quite a rough winter. Actually, the last 2 years we've had a rough winter.
Not over yet.
Not over yet. I hope that it's mostly over. Anybody driving on town roads realizes it's coming to a fast end. I'm down to about $3,000. I was down to a little over $6,000 when I put the request in. The request is based on an average of the last 2 or 3 years of expenditures from March 1st until June 30th, which is what I have to ride out for the rest of the year. If we don't have to spend it, we won't spend it, but I've gotta have something in order to repair the equipment. And unfortunately, some of the equipment is rather elderly, and like myself, tired. And so I have to have that ability to do the things that we need to do. We've already had to sink significant money into several of our older plow vehicles, and we're now working on our sweeper to get our sweeper up and running. That has to go out in 2 weeks. So we also have to bring all the athletic complexes up and get things moving. So without the appropriation, I'll just stop fixing equipment and we do whatever we can do. But I understand, I appreciate your understanding and just allowing us to have that little bit of extra to get down to the end of the year.
Are you gonna be needing the heavy equipment for any more snow removal in any of the property? Or is it
Well,
pretty
it's
well?
probably facing, to be honest with you, the heavy equipment account, you're gonna, and within the next 5 years, you're gonna wind up replacing
Oh,
massive amount of
we
equipment
know this, we know this.
along the sweeper, so.
I'm thinking of the athletic fields, I mean,
No, there's nothing really you can do on the athletic fields until the snow melts and then the frost gets out of the ground. So it'll just be, in May, they have a mud season, when the snow disappears, and between the time the snow disappears, the frost comes out of the ground, it's called mud season for a reason, because there's nothing but mud. We normally don't have that, or here it's a very short period of time, a couple of days, maybe a week, but there's 18 inches of frost in the ground. So as soon as the snow disappears, hopefully we get some nice warm weather, dry the frost out, and then we can take, but we can't, there's nothing we can do to remove the snow without doing a lot of damage.
Pete, do you do any plowing at any of the school sites? No?
No. No, we do go behind Peters once in a while, and then on occasion we've been requested to come and clean up, but not as a matter of routine, no.
Thank you. Right, is there a motion regarding this appropriation?
Is that unanimously approved to the Board of Selectmen?
Say it
Your
again?
$19,000 request?
Went to the Board of Selectmen?
Yep, $19,000. All right, I'll make the motion that we appropriate $19,000 from the contingency item. Not a lot.
Oh, I think this,
which we'll use up for the employee.
contingency.
Second?
Oh, no, this isn't from contingency.
This
would
is
be-
not from
No,
contingency?
this would be from the reserve,
From what?
the reserve. Our
How
fund
much do we
balance,
have in contingency?
27.
Oh,
So Janice said there'd
Yeah,
only be
three.
8 left.
3 months left in the budget season,
I believe the Board of Selectmen approved this to come out of the fund
out
balance.
of our balance. You want to amend your motion?
No?
I'll second.
Discussion?
Coming from reserve, am I correct?
No.
No.
Contingency.
Contingency. Okay.
No discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Item 6, Board of Education Policy Law. This has been on our agenda for 3 months now. Mr. Cross, do you have anything from your attorneys that you can present to the board yet?
23rd, they're coming to our Board of Finance, or Budget and Finance Subcommittee to respond to the 3 broad questions about 10-222, 13-60, and the draft policy that you have submitted for us for review.
Right, policy, well, it came also from our town attorneys. It wasn't, yeah. All right, so that'll be done by the end of the month?
And then on this 30th is when we'll bring forward a decision, if you will, but it's at a Budget and Finance Subcommittee that will be discussed at that point, so.
So you're it is state law since October 2013. You're just basically refining the law language or the interpretation of the law?
The question has been raised by all 3 boards, what all that means. And so we're trying to make sure that we have a unified response to all 3 questions. And that's all we're trying to do. And we are doing that in conjunction with the town's attorney, Shipman and Goodwin's portion of the attorney, as well as ours. So there was some time frame that they had to join because because Shipman and Goodwin represents both the town and the Board of Ed, there was a waiver of conflict of interest that needed to be signed.
It shouldn't be a conflict, because they're both the same pockets.
It is their requirement, not mine,
Oh,
not
okay.
yours.
It does sound funny, though.
It does, I agree, but, so,
So the end of
I
the
will
month.
have more information for you following the 23rd.
We are, since it is law, I feel very strongly that we need to move it along as quickly as possible. And I'd like to get it off our agenda. Thank you.
Okay?
And would it be proper for a motion to defer that until the April meeting?
I think that would be excellent.
I would so move to defer until the April meeting.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is there any discussion on this? Finalize the 2015-16 town and Board of Education budget. We go line by line?
Go ahead and count first.
Yeah, that would be the easiest and the most thorough way to
Going right down,
write down the list.
right down the list, yeah.
Do we have to make a motion for each line or just discuss? Discuss it, the motion's been finalized, so
We can discuss it, and then they'll punch the numbers in, and then we can do a motion to send it to public hearing for town, and then we do the same thing with the Board of Ed.
sorry, this is my first
No,
rodeo.
you're great.
Forgive me.
And we should just make sure we're all on the same page.
Thank you. All right, so the first budget on my sheet is the selectmen. Do we have any discussion of comments, questions? Next line item is finance. 17% increase with every penny.
Part of it is the one-time payment, if you weren't here, to get off our finance.
Right, how is the new software coming, the implementing?
We discussed it with them, this last week we had a conference with them, and they're sending us a new schedule, hopefully this week, with totals of what it would take to complete our training and get us on task. To do it right, we probably will not be on the new software until January 1st.
January 1st, and that will be both the Board of Ed and the town.
That's just us. We've agreed to separate our projects because we're at different places right now in proceeding.
What does that mean, separate your projects?
They're gonna have a different implementation timeline than we
Oh,
are.
but the same software?
Yes, yes, definitely.
Anybody else have questions? Elections and meetings. The request is 32,219,000.
Bless you.
Oh, are you going flipping through your books?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You're-
Was election
so
and
far, you're-
meetings 3?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read them out
So
that
far,
way.
you're good.
4 is town clerk,
No question.
151, 155.
151, 155, right?
Correct.
Okay, let me just say the numbers.
All right, 151, 155, town clerk, questions, comments, discussion? Number 5, assessor. 169, 162, $169,162. It's a 5% increase. No notes, comments? Number 6 is the tax collector budget. $140,770. Now, did you have a comment to make on that? Yes.
On this one, we did have to make a change to the salary. The assistant collector was actually only put into the budget this year for 30-hour work week. She actually works 35. So you'll also see later on in my discussion asking for a transfer from contingency to cover this year. So the new number actually for total salary would be $113,950 for a total budget of $145,090.
But we don't have the money in contingencies.
Yeah, we do.
Say
The
the
total
numbers,
is,
say the numbers again,
sure.
Jan.
The new salary,
Yes?
the total salary would be $113,950. That's an increase of $4,320. And the total bottom line for tax collectors would be $145,090.
Oh, there it is. Okay, got it. Thank you. Seven is probate court. And I do the printing bigger or get better eyes. $4,524 is the, my book's back there, and this is easier for me. Questions, comments? It's a 0% increase. 8, EDC. They've requested $10,000, $1,600 change. Anybody have any notes on EDC budget? No? The inland wetlands, number 9. Budget request $75,396. Speak up, or forever hold your tongue. Item
Silence is assent.
Item 10, zoning, ZBA. The budget amount is $4,950. Item 11 is planning and zoning. They've requested $131,421. It's a 7% increase. Wassam maintenance. The budget request is $199,418. 11% higher than the previous year. Questions? The fire department, budget request, $337,157. The fire marshal request, $58,800. Communications, the request is $579,188. The police department, the request is $2,795.35, and I have one question. Does that include the crossing guards?
No, it doesn't.
Would you,
I found an error in my budget. I neglected to put the crossing guards in. I met with my board of police commissioners on Thursday in special meeting. They get paid $11.34 an hour, 2 hours a day per crossing guard, times 180 days, comes to $8,164. I'd like to ask that $8,164 at the end.
$8,164.
To the part-time account.
Does the police bear the whole burden of all the crossing guards in the town, the payment of that item? So we have to add $8,164 to that budget line.
It's the part-time salary line.
Part-time, thank you.
Your total would now come to $2,803,199.
Just another minor question. I thought there was a correction too on full-time salaries, not a lot of money, but I wrote down $6,400 because I think we calculated something wrong.
Oh, the raises, when they came to the raises in, I don't know if you took care of that too.
I had it to 2,105,865 instead of 2,099,465.
I don't think that changed on that one.
Did you, no? So is that, that's correct, okay.
How much was the total on that one again?
2,105,865 full-time salaries.
105,865?
Well, let's make sure that $7 is figured out. Make it 870. This was my rating, and I don't know if 6,400 was proper or not.
Do you have the number?
I I don't have it in front of me, but, I mean, that was a meeting that we,
No, I remember, I have notes, and the final I had was 2105871.
87, okay, gotcha. Let's go with that.
205.
I'm sorry, that is the number, 871.
Okay.
I do have it. You're holding out.
I apologize.
So now it's $2,809,605.
Okay.
Say it again.
$2,809,605.
Thank you.
I have a question. Was there at some point an audit that the police department did, like midway, midstream, you know, for the financial audit? Todd?
I'm sorry.
In the past, have you had a financial audit for the
We
police?
had a financial audit?
I'm asking.
No. I mean,
No.
other than the yearly audit that the town does on my budget
Okay,
every year.
okay,
We're part
just
of the
asking.
town,
All right,
The fire department had one, is
The
that what
fire
you're thinking
department,
of?
yeah.
Fire department had a separate.
okay,
That's good.
okay. I was thinking both departments had separate audits.
Item 17, animal control, something close to my heart. $67,710 is the budget request for next year. Do we have any notes, comments? No? Civil prep, $5,600 is the budget request. Water and hydrants, $380,000 is the request. 12% increase. I wonder, I wasn't there for that, why that.
Oh, and rate increase, and I can tell you that 340,000 that you have in this year, you're not gonna meet. We're gonna blow through that budget. We're gonna be
Because
over.
rate, can I?
I mean, the year before, if you look at the actuals, for 378,000, and we budgeted last year for 340. So,
So now this will,
yeah, this will bring us back up hopefully
To
where we
where-
actually belong.
right. Too bad we just can't take it out of one and three. Street lighting, item 20, 105,000. I heard some good news that we're gonna be putting much more efficient street lights in Clinton, very soon. Yes, and brighter, better.
Cheaper.
Any comments on the street lighting budget? Public Works, 21. The request is $1,716,864. And that's correct. Questions, comments? They actually have lowered their budget by 1%. Technology, 22. $296,366, the budget request. Some good things are going on in the technology department, I have to say. 23, water pollution. $84,459. Building, item 24, $122,561. Am I going too fast? Health, 25, $171,548. No increase in that budget. The Conservation Commission, $3,800. Park and Rec, 27. Budget request, $280,944, 3% increase. The Harbor Commission, item 28. Budget request is $50,010. Shellfish Commission, $2,500 is the request for 15-16. Human Services, budget request is $280,397. Is this where PIC comes out of?
Yes.
I have a comment on PIC. I personally met with the head. I was extremely impressed with her qualifications and capabilities and the program. But this was she's not an employee of the town. She's been working on
Yes, she is.
funding. Excuse me?
She is a town employee.
She's been being paid by funding, public funding.
Correctly, but she's still a town employee.
Her salary is not paid by the town. Her
No,
salary is
no,
paid
but
by,
she is a town employee.
She's employed by the town, but she's not a town employee.
Whoa.
she's a volunteer, basically.
No, not a volunteer.
Well, her salary is from grants. When somebody takes a grant, one realizes how long the grant is going to be. And there's an end, there's a beginning and an end of a grant.
Can I make a comment that there is a $100,000 grant for 5 years that I can make application to if my job is continued here? And PIC has brought $1.5 million to this town in the last 10 years. We have not asked the town for a dime. We have completely funded everything through grants. But $1.5 million is a lot of money. And we have data that you guys have seen that support the progress that we have been able to make on substance abuse issues and asset development in our town. However, comparing some of our data to other shoreline towns, we still have work to do in prevention. And as others have commented tonight, to not allow the opportunity to bring more grants in and continue this work really would not service the children of this town, or the families either.
I'm totally in harmony with all those sentiments, except for the fact that it doesn't need to be a paid position on the town payroll.
I think
If I can,
Yes.
if the town doesn't pay for it, who's going to? If the town doesn't continue this program, where's it gonna go into the future? Is it gonna die? You don't
Well,
have
it
kids
can
in
be
school
volunteer.
anymore. I do, some of the other Board of Finance members up there do. And it's just not kids in the system, it's the parents, it's people in the community. What this does, you don't see, I see, because I'm involved with the schools, I'm involved with the kids in town. I kind of gave him a shot a couple weeks ago. Maybe they shouldn't have changed the name from the First Selectmen's Task Force on Substance Abuse, because that it gave it the connection to the town. PIC, no one knows, is connected to the town. The First Selectmen's Task Force was directly connected to the town by name. It's still the same group. The same stuff still's happening. It's just not called the Selectmen's Task Force.
But it was a
It's run under the
grant.
guise of Human Services. Peter supervises Kelly, who works there, paid through the grant, and it's not separate from the town. It's part of the town, it's part of our culture, and we need to keep this going to keep this town strong and to correct some of the issues that I see with the kids. I see it all the time. I know some of these young men and women that have gone the other way. I know two kids that are good friends with my son that have been expelled from school that you never would have thought of happened. This is stuff that's going on to educate these kids, educate the parents especially, as to why this stuff can't happen and what we need to do to prevent it.
And the money that it saves the community.
Can I ask what the salary is, the salary that we're talking about?
$40,000.
$40,000.
$20,000 in the town budget, $20,000 in the Board of Education budget. That's it.
20,000 in the town and 20 in the Board of Ed?
Yes.
PIC is funded until September, the middle of September, or somewhere time in September, by the grant that was given them. Tom, would you like to share
No.
We want to know what the cost is, Madam Chairman.
the cost of?
What are we trying to save here? What,
$20,000.
20,000? Because
The only
Tom
line item I
sees
see is 2,500.
2,005. He wants to know what the
Look under
3,000
salary,
is.
look under salary.
There it is, 20,000.
I got it.
if I could just on that, just make a comment also.
Sure.
It goes beyond the kids in the town that, PIC works with the police department routinely. We got our drug take-back box, which is primarily a senior-driven item. It's not for kids, it's to get drugs, people turn in their drug. She also helps us with underage drinking initiatives and stuff like that. So from our point of view, also the police departments are worthwhile.
It's excellent. I just wanted for public comment to realize that this is something that was not a salary item that is becoming a salaried item.
Correct.
We're adding
Just one more comment. Repeatedly, since the time I came to Clinton and I moved here, so I did invest my children in the schools, I've heard a lot of comparisons of Clinton to Madison, Clinton to Guilford, Clinton to lots of other communities. And I just want you to know that PIC was mentioned on Face the State on Sunday by our state representative. We won 2 out of 5 Middlesex County awards. The statewide Liberty Bank Youth Volunteer Awards, they nominated 15 kids. We had 5 from Clinton, 2
Kelly,
won 2 of the top.
I just want to remind you that this
You know what?
is,
But
we need to move on.
Madison funded it after the grant. Haddam-Killingworth funded it after the grant, and so did Glastonbury. I want Clinton to continue to compete with these towns that you're telling me Clinton competes with, because we're leading the charge right now.
Does anybody on the board have any more comments on?
I do. I'm not a voting member, but I would wonder why we couldn't add 20,000 to the total amount of 280,397.
It's in there.
It's in there.
It's in there.
It's
in there
already.
It's under salary.
Well, I'm not seeing it
It's under
here.
salary.
So it's right here, and this is the sum of this number.
Okay,
All that.
okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Item 31, General Government Administration, $4,405,253, 3% increase. Other General Government, item 32, $250,955, 5% increase. Item 33, Debt Redemption Town, $1,664,226, that's up 8%. Capital Improvement, 36, item 36, $947,900. And the library,
Ona, on that one, just to remind you,
Cap-
that one should be actually $953,300.
Correct.
That's the one I was telling you about, that we, the
CPC.
5,400.
cap,
Yeah,
900 what?
$953,300.
that's correct.
9533.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And the library request is $759,638, 3% increase from last year. Any questions, comments?
We make a motion that we approve the town budget as presented to go forward to town hearing.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Should we have the total number in place?
$52,752,237. Say again? $16,752,237.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Sorry, I have so many pieces of paper here, I don't know what I'm doing. Board of Education operating budget. That would be next. request is for $31,747,588. I have a question on this. I understand that the Board of Ed recently got a $150,000 grant. Is that reflected in these numbers that we have here?
No,
So there, on the revenue side, there's an additional $150,000.
What is that?
it's for the
But
preschool.
that's earmarked towards
It
this.
starts
I
preschool.
remember preschool, pay or
75
something like that. That's earmarked, that's not a general
$75,000
That's not in my
for the
revenue number.
programmatic
application.
program itself, and $75,000 for capital improvements for the preschool program. So we're ultimately, in the budget presented to you, we're reducing one preschool, special ed preschool program due to enrollment reductions there. But we were eligible for this Smart Start grant through the state that would enable us to provide up to 15, or actually between 15 and 18 students with a preschool experience, full-day preschool experience. And so we're looking to be able to capitalize on that.
Are there any other revenues that are not reflected in here? That have come to
We're
mind?
applying for other grants, but that's the only one that we're aware of at this point.
I have a comment on your heating fuel request. The original budget amount was $240,000. I understand that you can change over from gas to oil depending on, you can switch, you have options on your burner.
Yep.
I see that as of Friday, there's $116,785 in that account. You've only spent half of it, and the majority of the heating season is done. You have 3 months left. One of those months shouldn't be any heat. That was one area that stood out in my mind. As of January 16th, you only used $45,000 of that budget, and it seems a little odd that with oil prices today at $42.79 a barrel, that the request is for a 24% increase in that line item.
So we are currently using natural gas for all of our buildings. The projections for next year are based on the fact that we're coming off a 3-year contract at a substantially lower rate than what the market value was, and that reflects some of the increase in that, in those prices. It still comes in under, significantly under the oil price, what would be the oil prices for us in that day.
Right, I mean, but there's almost half the budget left, not spent, in that line item. That was something that stood out to me. Does anybody have any
Right.
other? That was as of Friday, 3/13.
Right. And again,
It's only half spent.
the invoices for our expenditures are not always coming in on a timely basis for payment purposes. So that reflects, and I can't tell you off the top of my head what the last invoice that represents.
I also see on the line item, computer repair supplies, you had, of the $58,000 budget, you've only spent $44,193 of that, not even a quarter of that amount has been.
Can you reference the line item, please?
I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, that's okay.
Line item for computer repair supplies is 101001810, 58,000, and the heating and fuel and gas is right underneath that. 101000128.
Which ledger are you looking at? Because I have like 4 or 5.
This-
What's the top there?
I sent that to you on Friday.
Yeah,
I
I
sent
know,
that,
I'm looking at it, I'm trying to follow along, that's all.
So I saw some savings there. Also, I think that it would be I don't know where you are with your plowing and maintenance contract, but I think it would be worthy of discussion with the Department of Public Works to have them not only take over the outside maintenance of the grounds for the Board of Education, but the plowing. These two incredible expenses, adding up to $57,914 for 2 storms, is, needless to say, shocking. And I don't understand how that could have happened with the amount of supervision.
So there's 2 parts of that. One is the first of those 2 bills, or the first of those 2 events took place with coordination ultimately with the emergency management group in the town, where both the Department of Public Works and the Board of Ed looked at the impending storm relative to snow removal. And we had lined up outside contractors on both sides ultimately to move snow out of our parking lots. And in both cases, the exorbitant amount of snow that we received this winter on those 2 occasions, it wasn't just a matter of pushing it out of the way, it was getting it off of our lots and out of the way so we could actually be able to use our parking lots. So they are exorbitant, I don't argue that. Is it possible that in the second go-round we could have come up with a better strategy? Perhaps. I won't argue that. I think we were looking at the time at expediency of making sure that we could open schools, and took advantage of a long weekend where we had closures already to minimize the impact of school closures and to clear the lots as best we could. So that given the continued snowfall that we were anticipating, which we in fact did have, that we would have some place to move the snow.
But snow is a New England event. You budgeted $27,000, that seemed to do fine in the years past.
And that's true. And this was, I think,
I just don't
considered
understand why the average snow removal is $1,500 to $3,800, and you were charged $22,000 and $35,000 on top of the other contract. I just think that it'd be worthy of having a discussion with the board of, with the Department of Public Works.
I would be happy to entertain that.
Save money. And I really question why the head of maintenance got a 5% raise after an event like this. But, okay.
Can I just make a comment? I'm a public educator in the Milford Public Schools. There were 4 days where I didn't have school and Clinton Public Schools did as a result of the expediency and the effectiveness of the snow removal. We live in New England, and New England is unpredictable. So to say that we can put a line item in there and for it to be maintained at a consistent level, we live in an unpredictable environment.
Madam, I appreciate your comment, but if you're paying $4,000 for snow removal and then you're charged $35,000 for the snow removal, for an event, it's shocking. It's not.
But you have to weigh the amount of snow or the period of time they came, because that's what the snow removal costs are based on.
Okay, all right. I think we've.
And the comment was that there were 2 other Public Works trucks, and I'm not denying that we could definitely partner up with Public Works. However, I don't feel as though that would.
Public Works might have something to say about that.
Right, and I mean, and I still don't think that would be enough, considering the storms that we had this year. The parking lots at the schools are small. I know if you look in a grocery store parking lot where they're not moving the snow, the pile is 25 feet high.
I could cut you off.
It could create an unsafe environment for kids in the parking lot. I mean, there are factors that I don't think you're considering.
I'm considering an obese bill. That's the only thing I'm considering. I'm just looking at numbers, okay? I
think that rather than, I understand you're going line by line, there is a portion that I believe we're sort of obliged to consider any current year surplus, like you're looking line by line, but have you guys just sort of totaled where you think you might end up at the end of the year? Because we do have to consider
I
that.
presented at the
Then
board
change.
presentation, and we are still working with those numbers. We have had an additional cost with regard to the Joel kindergarten wing, where
Oh,
a
right.
pipe burst.
Right.
We have a $5,000 deductible, and there are approximately between $18,000 and $20,000 worth of repairs that would not specifically be covered by insurance. On top of that, we also have two special ed students out of district placements that have moved into town since the budget presentation. We're still working on the numbers for what those costs will ultimately be. So those certainly would be numbers against the original anticipated surplus at that point.
Which is, how much?
For pupil,
350 to 500? Is that what you reported? That was last month, 350 to, so I understand, it was about 425,000.
Between 380 and 450.
380 and 450.
Yeah.
Thank you.
for both,
I'm sorry?
for both special ed pupils?
No, that's the anticipated surplus, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I don't have a concrete number at this point for the two, because those are, we're negotiating with the towns that they're coming from. One is a residency issue as well, so we're
Okay.
sorting, so I don't have a firm number for that.
I brought up the fuel budget line. Anybody else have any comments on this budget?
I'd just like to hear at some point in time, you know, whether there can be any cost-saving measures, some recommendations by either the Director of Technology or the new business manager, or if that position is called new business director, for the coming fiscal year. I mean, I don't know if they've found anything or not, it'd be nice to know that.
I'm not sure, I'm not clear what your question is, sir.
Well, you've got a Director of Technology.
Yeah?
And you've got a new business manager. And I wonder if now you have had sufficient time to go through things to see if there are any cost-saving measures that could be employed at this point. So you made your presentation, I don't think they were at a point in time where they were ready to do that.
So the
And I'm
business
asking you now, has anything changed since then?
Okay. So the business manager came on board January 5th, 4th. So although we are working together to look for effective ways to reduce the budget, one I can identify off the top is the E-rate reimbursement, which is will help us increase the amount of reimbursement for our communications line item. But it's a cost-sharing component, so you have to spend to get. So while there will be savings, it is based on identifying specific communications equipment in the technology line item that qualify for E-rate and purchase it in that way, so that can be, the cost of those things can be reimbursed. The second piece that we're working with and have submitted is a technology grant that again has to do with a shared cost, so you spend X and you get a certain amount to offset the total cost of those. So in the end, it will help us to move our technology plan forward at lesser cost, but that's actually related to our capital budget.
Right.
Overall, beyond that, our technology director, who has been on board for a longer period of time, ultimately did represent in both our capital and our technology portion of this budget cost efforts, there were a portion of that from an equipment standpoint is down slightly, but again, it's not significant at this point. But the other efforts for his part involved in the combination of E-rate, technology grant, and ultimately a security grant that we'll be applying for shortly.
Okay. But you can see where I'm coming from. I mean, it's been a while since your presentation, so I wanted to see if there's anything else that we could save money.
So at this point, the things that are in the works, except for the preschool grant that we spoke of and the E-rate reimbursements for some of the purchase equipment that we would be doing, I don't have anything further to report to you at this point.
Thank you.
I guess I would just make a comment too that, I think that we all consider cost saving measures and, you know, we do hear about taxes and, you know, I respect your comment. I hope you have other avenues such as a whistleblower policy that might protect you from something other than just this audience. I don't think the Board of Finance is in a position to do anything, you know, other than to continue to look at cost-saving measures. I think that we have historically operated under a constant oversight of this to the best that we can, but I also think that it's reflective of, you know, I hear that people leave town because of taxes and their taxes are too high, and I also hear that people leave town because that Clinton doesn't offer the programming that other towns offer. And it is exemplary. I did look at some data, and while there are some people who expect it to go down a certain rate based on the enrollment, surrounding towns have had much steeper enrollment declines than us. And they've also, and Clinton has had the lowest increase in its education budget in the past 5 years compared to surrounding towns. So they've lost more people, yet they still recognize that, well, it's not that they recognize, I think what that is a testament to is the cost containment efforts. While we have not gone negative or zero, we have not gone to a 5%, 6%, 7% increase that some of these other towns have. So, you know, it is, I do hear that we don't have an athletic trainer at our practices. We don't have a jazz band at the high school. There's so much that we don't have, and when we compete for a tax base in order to share the burden, these other towns are getting it. So I think that, you know, I appreciate, and I hope the audience and the board can appreciate some of these efforts that are made. And I know we go line by line, and, you know, honestly, the snow plowing thing, I kind of thought of that too. If there was any way to the spirit of the law that you're representing that requires maybe the Board of Finance to suggest, and I read that law as to suggest non-educational. So non-educational, snow plowing might fit in there. I'd suggest that you probably, we do own snow plows. You probably should talk to each other. But you know, I live off of Egypt Lane. I really appreciate the fact that Egypt Lane is plowed right away when I get home because I won't make it home. So, you know, what's more important, getting the kids to school the next day or plowing my street? They're both important. So you guys may have to duke that out. So that's my thing, and I personally think that at this requested increase, it is minimal, especially if you look at what some of the surrounding towns are doing and how we do have to compete for those people. Not only, you know, we want those families moving in to spread our tax base, but we don't want people moving out. And we don't want people moving out for taxes either, but they are paying more taxes in Madison regardless of the mill rate, or Old Saybrook, depending on what they're buying. So that's just my comment.
I appreciate your comments. But since you brought up this issue of the surrounding towns, in the rankings, our school system ranks in the lower half.
Yeah, it does, I know.
All of the surrounding towns rank higher. Chester, Madison, Guilford, Old Saybrook, East Lyme, Deep River, Essex, Westbrook, Brantford, Waterford. They all outrank us, and they're in the top quarter in the state of Connecticut.
That's consistent with my message.
And
they're still spending, and they spend a lot
They-
more money than
That's
we do.
consistent with what we heard at the beginning, that when you spend money, you get
Better outcomes.
better results.
Well, how is being in the lower half of ranking better results.
They spend more money than we do.
They are spending more money than we are. That's the issue.
There's no correlation between cost per pupil and performance.
There's also
That's
a
ridiculous.
factor
That's
that's not
utterly
included in
ridiculous.
any of that, and that is the
That is
mean
clear.
household
Data is
income.
not clear.
And Clinton is very low when compared with every one of the towns you mentioned.
Well,
Guilford, Madison,
This
Old
has to do
Saybrook.
with graduation rates and success of the students.
It also should be relevant to socioeconomic status, because socioeconomic status is definitively linked to academic outcomes.
And Branford doesn't have, Branford has like 3,000 condominiums.
We have no,
Branford's the only one
So-
on there.
No, Deep River, Waterford, anyway.
Waterford's much higher.
Line items, Board of Education.
I just have one comment that kind of dovetails with Val's comment. The adjusted operating budget for the Board of Ed this year is 31,283,426, according to the ledger. So 1% of that is $312,000. You know, I would sign up for a 1% surplus every year for as long as I'm on the Board of Finance, because budgeting for $31 million and hitting it that close should be commended. So I think we can do that. The last 4 years, the surplus has been about 411,000, and the variation has been 29 million to 31 million, so you're still under 2%. So, you know, and everyone that we interviewed for the finance manager and for the business manager, they all said the same thing. You're coming in near 3%, you're doing a good job.
We're on operating budget. Any more comments from the board? From the Board of Education?
I'll just repeat what Brad said as a banker. I'm experiencing people budgeting for their companies, both private and public. For them to come in within 3 to 5%, I congratulate them on their predictability. And I congratulate the Board of Ed here for being able to predict within 2% their costing on an annual basis.
I would agree with that, except the operating surplus, has been used for capital. They've been budgeting for capital. Like this year, they've budgeted $400 and something thousand for capital, $459,000. And we give them that money, and then they take surplus and use it for capital a second, so it's like a double dip in the capital, No other department in this town does that.
We don't always give them that money. There was one year we brought it down by $300,000. They had so on a $30 million budget, they had $100,000 in capital.
But
we don't.
That's been the policy lately.
No, every year we brought it down, the past 2-3 years.
Yeah, and
we
the
brought it down.
facts contradict that too. I mean, I think the audit for the last 2 years shows that the town does spend more than what was budgeted through special town meeting, whether it's a capital expenditure or an operating expense.
In reference to the Board of Education, though,
Oh.
talking about their surplus.
Well, I'm talking about capital. You brought up capital.
I brought up capital. Board of Education capital.
Well, what do you want to reduce it by, Owen?
I would say that since they have a $450,000 surplus and they've overestimated the long-term projections on oil and gas prices, that they're gonna be stable for the next year, year and a half, 2 years. There's not gonna be any fluctuation in that. That appropriate reduction would be in the $600,000 range.
Where did you get that from?
450,000, basically,
Oh,
they would take
capital?
out their capital because they're gonna have it in their surplus. They will do that, use that money for surplus, and $100,000 in savings in fuel. That's my suggestion, but
I'd actually rather look at it on the revenue line, which is another way of utilizing surplus, and I don't know when we'll get to that, but we have that allocated surplus that historically had been, I don't know, like $200,000, and we brought it down to $100,000. I mean, that's another way to sort of provide tax relief on surpluses, is that we actually budget it as revenue. So keep the budget the same, but look at the revenue line.
yes. This board needs to be aware that we have to look down the road. This is not just a spot decision right now. And in the next 4 years, we're gonna be paying $5,100,000 in debt, basically for the new school. And it's non-productive money, it doesn't plow any roads or pay any salaries. And the Water Pollution Control Commission is looking for 47 million in the next 5 years.
Well,
These numbers are oppressive to taxpayers.
and it's the lack of
And we
looking
really
ahead
need
that
to-
caused that we
Exactly.
continually underfund capital. And so we have to build a new building, because we continually underfund it. So I just hate to keep doing that.
There is going to be you've seen the building
Oh, yeah.
layouts.
Yeah, I know.
$3,400,000, 464,000 for debt this year. And the 47 million water pollution control. I just want to be as fiscally responsible and as careful as possible. That's all. And if there's money to be, if they have surplus monies, I think they should use them for their capital projects. They intend to anyway. That's what we were told, so.
You suggesting that they receive less money for capital projects?
Yes. Further discussion?
I think we did this exercise a while back when we started looking at their capital expenditure plan and said, use some of the surplus to prepay or buy some of this during this fiscal year versus next. And Jack, you tell me if I'm not right, but a lot of this you can't do simply because you got school buildings full of kids.
Some of it you can.
Yeah. Taking a quick look, is there any that you can? I'm looking at maybe the computer upgrade, I don't know if that's hardware or that's also system, putting in new systems.
This just frightens me.
I don't see anything else here, but replacing a desk and a chair or somebody sitting there, like, that's kind of tough.
So, as we have suggested in the past, in the case of what we have projected here, the only area that I would suggest that we could begin to do some purchasing, pre-purchasing, if you will, would be in the computer and technology replacements.
I tried to see if there were others, I don't know if that boiler replacement can be done.
That's
Now,
hard,
we've got school that's
harder
not
to
gonna
do
be-
it in session.
for your school, only supposed to July now anyway.
Any further comments, questions, discussion? Motion? $31,747,588 Board of Education
That's
operating.
operating, yes.
What? That's operating.
Do you need the whole thing, or just?
How would you prefer it? Together?
Operating.
Just operating,
Yeah, it's just,
line by line.
I move that we approve and send to public hearing for the proposed operating budget of $31,747,588.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Abstentions? Capital, Board of Education requested for $459,430, 24% from last year.
I move we send that number to public hearing.
I second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Abstentions?
the capital, $459,430.
Board of Education debt, that one can wood, $833,313. Debt.
I'll make that motion, and the $833,313 for public hearing.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Just so you know, your total for Board of Education for those three lines is $33,040,331.
33,400,000.
$40,000.
40,000.
Yep, $331.
Thank you, Janet. I have lost my place. Finance Director's report and all line item transfer requests.
Wait a minute, do we do the revenues?
Oh, have we done anything?
Oh, sorry.
You do.
Did we do, yeah, we have to do that, right? We don't really want to talk on the revenues.
Lily, you want to address revenues over here?
Jackie, the 150 you talked about with the grant increase, is that somewhere, I don't see.
No, that's
No,
not
it's
in
not
here.
in here.
Should it be? I don't know.
We don't reflect,
It's additional grant.
Well, if you did, then you should be, that is.
yeah. We do the same thing with some of the grants we get with youth. and-
It's specific, you
Yeah.
just have them closer to the line.
Special ed reimbursement numbers only 41,000, right? Budget.
That's actually combined in with, we get it in one lump sum, or the special education reimbursement. So that's up with there,
She sent it today?
yes.
All right. Willie, do you want to address the revenue side of the budget?
I don't know much more I can say than what Janet said. We worked
Yeah,
on it
just
together.
any
Numbers
questions
from
you
the state
have?
are the numbers from the state. There's some numbers, even though the governor said he wasn't reducing any money to towns, he certainly did.
Yeah,
The whole harmless grant is gone.
the municipal revenue
The
sharing.
tax relief money, which is about 120-something thousand last year, is gone. So there's definitely a reduction at the state level, other than an ECS on the education side. And we were very aggressive last year. I was very aggressive with the revenues on the town side, the local revenues. We hit some, we didn't hit some, according to our audit. We'll see how we do this year. We're tracking okay, but we were aggressive where we could be. Jan and I looked at the numbers where we're trending now, where we were last year in the audit, and we bumped where we could. I know zoning had a big increase last year. We added money to the zoning revenue this year, not a lot, because there's a lot of one-hit wonders in that zoning increase that are gonna go away. So if you keep bumping it up and those revenues go away, then you're gonna fall short. So,
Did we
we're aggressive,
include-
but we're conservative.
Is the Morgan Trust in here at all?
No, it's nothing to do with the town. That's separate, that's
Yeah,
that's
that
like
goes
the
into separate
Education
fund.
Foundation, that's like all these other ones, it's nothing to do with the town. That's separate.
It's not part of the general fund.
Those municipal revenues, and you see the marina, we went up a little bit last year, we kept this the same this year, just because we know we have 6 boat slips this year because of the sedimentation that has been deposited along the bulkhead. There's 6 slips we won't be able to rent. So why go up when you know you probably may not achieve what you made last year. Transfer station was a big increase, we took in more money last year than we had budgeted, not a lot, but then we also implemented the free passes for the seniors, which is, I think, a wonderful thing to do. So you can't count on having the same kind of numbers. So we did what we could, we bumped where we felt was comfortable, but again, you not only do you want to run a deficit on the expenditure side, you certainly don't want to run a deficit on the revenue side. And then if you look at, yeah, we had $1 million in the revenue surplus, but that's because we had $600,000-$700,000 in storm reimbursement in 13-14, which we're not going to see this fiscal year because we haven't finished the Beach Park Causeway projects. Those are one-shot deals, and everybody forgets, we actually appropriated that money out of fund balance, and we're only getting 75% of the town. So those aren't truly revenues, those are money that's reimbursement to the town from work that we had to do, corrective actions we had to take as a result of natural disasters. So, yeah, we did increase where we could. I would suggest, and I know a couple years ago you guys decided to go the other way with it, I would suggest putting $100,000 from reserves back into the budget, bring it back up to the $250 that we had had. We've never had to touch it, it doesn't hurt anything to put it in there, and we have plenty of money in reserves. I think it's a symbolic gesture, at least, to the taxpayers, that we're using some of that fund balance to offset the potential mill rate increase. You do what you want. I think it was a double-edged sword. You took it out and you cut contingency, and the contingency being cut has bitten us in the butt a few times over the last couple of years as well. So I think you should at least bring the 250, put the 250 back in, bring it 150 up to 250. That's all.
Thank you, Willie.
That's where I was headed. I would think that I don't even think I was at the meeting where a couple years ago where we cut it by that 100,000, but I will say I was surprised, because I do think that is how we provide some relief with some of the fund balance and some of the surpluses that we do realize. So I'd probably be in favor of increasing the appropriated surplus, but I'm making a motion, but to increase appropriated surplus by $100,000 to be $250,000.
Second? You can't vote, you're unseated, point of order, sorry.
We open for discussion now?
The revenues, you want us just to approve, do line by line on the total receipts? How?
No, we never do that. We just give what I had when I first started out on this board was the fact that we were using the undesignated surplus, I think unwisely, by lowering costs. And I think in the first year I was on the board, we ended up having a deficit surplus. We were basically bankrupt.
How many years ago was that?
That was back in the 80s. And we spent a lot of time and a lot of money building that surplus back up to now what our underwriting firms request as at least a 10% reserve for the special items that occur. Pete would be more than knows well enough what we had to spend beyond our budget for the snow and the storm damage that we had, that we wouldn't have had back in '88 if that happened. We would have had to issue a new tax, have an additional tax to the people to make up for that loss. We're currently in the middle of building a 60-40, whatever you want to say, a high school, and we're also planning on a wastewater system. The amount of money that we have to borrow is going to increase our debt service considerably, and that's going to increase our budget. And I want to make sure that our surplus, without aches and pains, can maintain that increased debt service. One thing I like to think that I've been proud to do is to make sure that our surplus is considered gospel and untouchable. And even though that I've heard the wrath of citizens before, I kind of stand stubborn in saying, without that, we're not going to be able to enjoy AA2 rating. At a town as small as we are, there's not many towns as small as we are that have a AA2 rating. What does that mean? That means we just did a recent bond. Willie, what did it, 0.15% interest?
On the $24 million payment, it
That's
was
almost
0.15% on
zero.
the payment.
You're not gonna get that with junk bond ratings. And that's what we were when I started out on the Board of Finance over 20 years ago. And I just like to make sure that we don't start thinking that because we do have a cushion now, that we always will have a cushion, especially when we know we're gonna be spending an awful lot of money on some major projects in the next couple of years. My thoughts.
The only place those revenues can come from is the taxpayers.
Well, they're hopefully gonna come from an increased tax base as well,
Hopefully.
hopefully. Can't predict
We have
that.
some things on her.
That's not my job. My job is to make sure that we're a financially responsible organization that does the best we can when it comes to bonding. The rest is those guys' jobs.
So, total Board of Education revenue, 7,005,678. Is that how you want to do it?
Yep.
Discussion on that? We have a motion?
I'll move we accept the receipts of $7,005,678.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention. Total receipts, Board of Education, 7 million, that's the same,
It's the same.
exactly the same, okay. Why was that laid out like that then?
Well, because usually we have a special education tuition that we're not getting this year.
That's actually in with the special education reimbursement. It's just one line now.
Okay.
Total state for town, revenue side, 1,115,200,000. We have a motion to accept. Comments?
So moved.
So seconded.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions. Other sources? 1,447,800. I have lost my
We understand where
my
you're going.
mind. 800. Motion?
I'll move in spite of what I just said about the surplus, I don't have a problem with 150,000.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Total receipts, 9,568,678,000. Having voted on the above numbers, that's, we're just voting on the total.
Just arithmetic.
Does it make sense to vote on the total?
No.
No, because that's what it adds up to. Okay, Finance Director's report, all line item transfers.
Okay,
Have we done what?
that's what we're doing now.
We'll do it now.
There should have gotten a message regarding contingency and the issue that we discussed during the budget talk on the tax collectors department. There was an amount budgeted this year in the tax collectors department for assistant tax collector that was budgeted at 30 hours a week. She actually works 35. As we went through the year-to-date numbers, we found that they were gonna be over by the end of the year. And we needed to transfer the difference that should have been budgeted of $4,456.
But we included that salary item in the operating.
That's for next year.
Next
This
Oh, that's
year,
right.
this year was incorrectly.
Okay, because I wasn't
Yes.
at that last meeting, I apologize.
No, that wasn't discussed last meeting, you didn't miss it. That was, just came up within, since the last meeting.
How much are we transferring tonight for last budget, for the
For
current
this
budget?
current year,
Yeah,
it would be the 4,456,000, and then if you add in the 19,000 that we discussed for the, Public Works.
That $4,000 you can't find in another line?
Not in their department, no. They're small departments, when you get that small, that tight, when you're down that much.
Do you need a motion from us? Do you need a motion?
Well, we already did the Public Works, right?
Yes.
So I'll make the motion to appropriate $4,000, or how much was it?
$4,456.
From contingency.
Do we,
contingency again.
We have 27,000. So
But no, we took 19,000 earlier
yeah,
tonight.
and this is another 4, so you're bringing it down to,
Zero.
well,
66 minus.
4410, you're gonna budge.
440,
4,410
left in
bucks.
contingency.
Don't spend it all at once.
Yeah.
And then
Val
was
made
it-
a motion to
For
trim.
contingency,
mm-hmm.
I'll second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Anything
Okay,
else?
I don't know if you need a motion on this, but I wanted to make you aware, I think I sent to all of you, the capital projects expenditures is a recommendation. It looks a little bit different than the usual expenditures I send you, some people thought it was the same thing. It's not. There's columns at the end, I'm showing where I'm going to be closing out projects and transferring the money back into the general fund. Talked with some of the different directors about the projects and their status, and we found that we can close out the projects in the capital and transfer back into the general fund of approximately $135,000. So I just wanted to make you all aware that that's what we plan to do.
Is this something you're gonna do at the year end, or is it?
No, we're gonna do it now.
Right now?
Mhm.
Okay. Will there be any more between now and the end of the year?
If projects finish and I'm able to close them out, I will. There's none that I know of at this time.
Okay.
We need to, do we need to address this draft mill rate at this meeting? No, that will be.
That'll be later on.
Yes.
Yeah, that's,
Thank you. I see the draft. in front of us. Item 9, old business. Item 10, new business.
Point of clarification, are these subjects now pending referendum?
Pending public hearing.
Public hearing. We had just, what we did tonight was approve or reject the numbers to send to public
So they'll be
hearing,
pending after the
and then
public
the
hearing.
referendum.
Got it, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else have?
And the date for the public hearing?
I can give you that in 1
I
second.
think it's the 8th.
April 8th. Public hearing is April 8th, and the budget will be voted upon on the 13th of May. The town meeting on the budget is the 6th of May. Motion to adjourn if there's nothing else.
So moved.
Those in favor?